James Harden just signed a 3-year, $97 million contract to stay in Cleveland. That deal alone pushes his career basketball earnings past $500 million, making him the fourth player in NBA history to hit that number. The rich life of James Harden isn't just about paychecks, though. It's about a guy who turned a bench role into a beard-branded empire, then turned a $500,000 favor into hundreds of millions more. Let's get into it. Before the mansions, before the tequila brand, before the beard became a logo, James Harden was a kid coming off the bench in Oklahoma City, trying to prove he was worth more than the Thunder wanted to pay him. After a productive college stint with Arizona State, Harden declared for the 2009 NBA Draft, and the Oklahoma City Thunder selected Harden with the 3rd overall pick. He wasn't the flashiest name in that draft class. Blake Griffin went first, but Harden had something scouts loved: footwork, touch, and a knack for getting to the free throw line that would eventually reshape how the entire league played offense. Shortly after, Harden inked a 2-year rookie deal worth $4.76 million, and as a rookie, he took on a bench role where he averaged 9.9 points, 3.2 rebounds, and 1.8 assists per game, earning him a place on the all-rookie second team. That's not a superstar's stat line. That's a role player finding his footing, behind two guys who were already household names: Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. But here's the thing about Harden even back then. He didn't sulk about coming off the bench. He mastered it. 2 seasons later, Harden pieced together a breakout season, averaging 16.8 points, 4.1 rebounds, and 3.7 assists per game off the bench to win the 6th Man of the Year, and served as a vital piece to the Thunder's deep playoff run in 2012, when the team went as deep as the NBA Finals before conceding to the Miami Heat in 5 games. So picture the summer of 2012. Harden is 22 years old. He just won an individual award, just went to the finals, just proved he can be a #1 option in stretches. And the Thunder come to him with a contract that basically says, keep being our 6th man money-wise. During the summer of 2012, Harden and the Thunder failed to agree to terms for an extension. The number being thrown around wasn't small by normal standards. The Thunder had offered Harden a 4-year, $54 million extension before talks broke down. But Harden knew what he was worth, and he wasn't budging. The Oklahoma City Thunder attempted to sign Harden on a 4-year contract valued between $52 and $55 million during the free agency period, and Harden admitted he was given too little time to consider the offer. This is the first real decision point in Harden's financial life, and it's the one that sets up everything else. He could have taken the security, signed for $54 million, stayed with a contender, let Durant and Westbrook carry the marketing weight while he banked steady checks as the 3rd guy. Instead, he called the bluff. The fallout was immediate and dramatic. That prompted a trade that sent Harden, along with Daquan Cook, Cole Aldrich, and Lazar Hayward, to the Houston Rockets, in exchange for Kevin Martin, Jeremy Lamb, and multiple draft picks. Just days before the season opener. No warning to fans, barely any warning to Harden himself. And then something remarkable happened almost instantly. Houston did what Oklahoma City wouldn't. The Rockets signed guard James Harden, the NBA's reigning 6th Man of the Year, to a 5-year contract extension worth approximately $80 million. The Rockets' front office wasn't shy about why. Rockets owner Leslie Alexander called Harden the foundational type player we have been looking to add. A tremendous young player with the ability and skill set to be an all-star, ready to make the next move up to join the elite players in the NBA. The math tells the whole story. Harden was moved to the Rockets because he sought a 4-year, $60 million max extension that the Thunder were not willing to offer, with reports indicating Oklahoma City's best offer was $54 million over 4 years. Houston didn't just match that number. Houston was able to offer a 5th year on the contract that Oklahoma City was unable to give, since the Thunder had already used its designated player tag on all-star point guard Russell Westbrook. $6 extra million and 1 extra year. That's the gap between staying a beloved bench piece in a title contender's system and becoming the face of a rebuilding franchise with the ball in your hands every single possession. Harden chose the bag and the opportunity, and immediately the results backed up the bet. He became the featured player in Houston after 3 seasons in a supporting role behind Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City. Coach Kevin McHale wasn't hiding his excitement either, telling reporters the team had Harden locked in for 6 years and planned to build around him for the long haul. This is the blueprint that Harden would repeat in different forms for the next decade and a half. Identify the moment your value exceeds your paycheck. Force the conversation. Don't be afraid to walk if it means getting paid what you're actually worth. It's a simple principle, but very few athletes actually have the nerve to act on it when they're 22 and still building a reputation. What Harden didn't know yet, standing in a Houston jersey for the first time, was that this same instinct, spot the mismatch between what you're worth and what you're being paid, then move, would define not just his basketball contracts, but his entire business career. The same guy who forced a trade over $6 million would later spot a $500,000 opportunity in a sports drink company that nobody else believed in and turn it into one of the greatest athlete investments in modern sports history. But that came later. First, Harden had to become the best offensive player alive, and Houston was about to pay him accordingly. A contract so big, it would briefly make him the richest player in the history of the league. Houston's bet paid off almost immediately, and it paid off in a way that changed how Harden would be compensated for the rest of his career, both on the court and off it. Within his first few seasons in Houston, Harden was unrecognizable from the 6th man Oklahoma City let walk. He became one of the most prolific scorers in NBA history, known for his exceptional ball handling skills, step-back three-pointer, and ability to draw fouls. His game reshaped how offenses were built around isolation basketball and free throw generation, and it made him must-see TV every single night. That kind of production doesn't stay cheap for long. In the summer of 2017, Houston came calling again, and this time the number was staggering. The Houston Rockets inked James Harden to a contract extension worth a reported $228 million on Saturday, with the exact value depending on future league-wide salary cap figures. The mechanics of that deal mattered as much as the number. Harden had 2 years worth $59 million left on his previous contract, and he benefited from a provision in the new collective bargaining agreement covering extensions for superstars. The designated player veteran extension, which for him was worth an additional $169 million over 4 seasons. The contract gave him a total 6-year deal with a guaranteed $228 million, the richest deal in the NBA at the time. Think about that trajectory. 5 years earlier, Oklahoma City wouldn't guarantee him $54 million. Now Houston was handing him $228 million guaranteed. The gamble on himself had multiplied roughly 4-fold in value, and he hadn't even hit his prime scoring years yet. He justified every dollar of it almost immediately. After signing that contract extension, Harden repaid the organization by winning his first MVP trophy, registering 30.4 points, 5.4 rebounds, and 8.8 assists per game in the 2017-18 season. He clinched the NBA's Most Valuable Player award in 2018, alongside 3 scoring titles and 2 assist titles, becoming the first player in NBA history to achieve that combination. That MVP season also included one of the wildest individual scoring stretches basketball had seen in over a decade. During that season, Harden secured the 3rd 50-point game of the year in a 128-118 loss to the Los Angeles Clippers, making him the first player in franchise history to earn 2 consecutive 50-point games, and the first player in NBA history to record 50 or more points in straight games since Kobe Bryant in 2007. That Kobe comparison isn't just a stat sheet coincidence. It's a thread that runs straight through the rest of this story, because Bryant wasn't just a rival Harden was being compared to statistically. He was about to become one of the most important influences on Harden's financial life in a completely different arena than basketball. But before we get there, we need to talk about the deal that was quietly running in the background of all of this. The one that had nothing to do with the Rockets and everything to do with turning Harden into a global brand rather than just a max contract player. Back in 2015, well before the Supermax extension, before the MVP trophy, Adidas made a move that most people underestimated at the time. Adidas made Harden one of the faces of its NBA campaign after signing him in 2015 to a 13-year deal worth as much as $200 million. 13 years is an eternity in athlete endorsement terms. Most shoe deals run 3 to 5 years, get renegotiated, sometimes get dropped entirely if a player's stock falls. Adidas locked Harden into a decade-plus commitment while he was still building his resume, betting that the beard, the step back, and the personality would translate into a signature identity as marketable as any shoe brand had. It worked. The Adidas deal became one of the largest endorsement contracts in basketball history, and it turned Harden's face, literally the beard, into a piece of intellectual property. Harden still owns the title of the NBA's King of Beards, a reputation he built after first growing his signature look back in 2009, with his thick jet black beard becoming the gold standard across the league, and earning him the nickname The Beard. Not just a style choice anymore, it anchors his identity and fuels his branding no matter how many teams he's played for. So by the time Harden was hoisting his MVP trophy in 2018, he had 2 separate revenue engines running at full speed. One was the on-court salary, now the biggest contract in league history. The other was a 13-year branding partnership that would keep paying him whether he was scoring 36 a night or coming off a playoff disappointment. And playoff disappointment, unfortunately, kept finding him. Despite the MVP, despite the video game numbers, Houston kept running into a wall in the postseason, most memorably a heartbreaking 7-game loss to Golden State, the same year he won his MVP. The championship that would validate all of it never came, and that frustration would eventually boil over into another trade demand, one far messier than the one that got him out of Oklahoma City. But here's what's important for the story of his wealth specifically. While all of that on-court drama was unfolding, Harden had quietly started listening to advice from a future Hall of Famer about a totally different kind of investment. One that had nothing to do with basketball contracts at all, and everything to do with a sports drink most fans had never heard of. That conversation with Kobe Bryant would end up making Harden more money than either of his max NBA contracts combined. Here's a question worth sitting with. What's the single most profitable financial decision James Harden has ever made? It isn't the $228 million Rockets extension. It isn't the $200 million Adidas deal. It's a $500,000 check he wrote into a sports drink company most people had never heard of, on the advice of Kobe Bryant. Most people had never heard of, on the advice of Kobe Bryant. The story starts with Bryant himself getting in early. Bryant had invested $6 million in body armor back in 2014. But Bryant didn't just want to make a personal bet. He wanted to build a habit among the athletes around him. Harden explained it on the Earn Your Leisure podcast, describing how Bryant proposed pooling money together specifically for opportunities like this one. Harden recalled Bryant's pitch as putting together a stash and investing in opportunities that might be as little as $200,000 or as much as $500,000 depending on the deal, calling it a shared pot they'd invest together. Harden said body armor was the beginning of that, and we've seen how it is. That's the key detail. This wasn't a random athlete getting lucky on a stock tip. This was Kobe Bryant, one of the most obsessively prepared competitors basketball has ever produced, treating investing with the same discipline he treated conditioning drills. And he pulled Harden into that discipline early, joining Bryant and beverage marketing veteran Lance Collins. Harden was part of a small consortium of investors that launched body armor into a successful global brand. Collins wasn't a stranger to building beverage companies from scratch. He was also behind Fooz, a tea and fruit juice-based beverage he sold to Coca-Cola for $250 million in 2007, as well as premium water brand Core, which Keurig Dr. Pepper bought for $525 million in late 2018. Collins had a track record of building brands that ended up in the hands of the biggest beverage companies on earth. Harden and Bryant weren't just investing in a product, they were investing in a proven builder. Collins believed the two NBA stars were a major part of the equation, adding visibility for Body Armor, a brand launched in 2011. Among a younger generation of consumers obsessed with basketball, Harden wasn't just a silent check writer either. He lent his face and his platform to the brand the same way Adidas had been using his image, except this time he had equity, not just an endorsement fee. Then, in the fall of 2021, the payoff arrived. Body Armor, co-founded by Mike Ripoll and Lance Collins, was acquired by the Coca-Cola Co. after Coca-Cola purchased a 15% stake in 2018 and later paid $5.6 billion in cash for the remaining 85% of the company. Coca-Cola's own executives made clear why they wanted in. Alfredo Rivera, president of Coca-Cola's North America operating unit, called Body Armor a great addition to the system lineup, and said the company was excited to bring Body Armor into the Coca-Cola Company for its next stage of growth. The numbers on Harden's specific slice of that deal have varied depending on who's reporting it, but every version tells the same story of a wildly asymmetric return. Harden's stake, funded with an initial $500,000 investment, reportedly grew to $200 million once Collins brokered the record-breaking sale of Body Armor to Coca-Cola for $5.6 billion. Other reporting puts his equity stake closer to $60 million heading into the sale, with Harden's equity stake in Body Armor playing a pivotal role in the brand's journey, and resulting in a significant payout when Coca-Cola acquired the company, earning him roughly a 4,000% return on investment as of 2023. Whichever figure is closest to the truth, the conclusion doesn't change. A few $100,000 invested at the encouragement of a mentor outperformed every basketball contract Harden had signed up to that point, and it did it without him taking a single dribble. Harden himself has been careful about how he talks about it publicly, treating it less like a jackpot and more like a lesson learned. He said he's continuing to try and find the right opportunities. Not just anything, asking himself whether it's something he really believes in, something he can stand behind and organically say he loves being a part of, calling that the stage of his career he's at now. And it wasn't a one-time thing. When Collins came back around with new ventures, Harden didn't hesitate. Collins offered him the chance to invest in another brand, and Harden explained, "It's all about relationships." By that point, Collins had built out an entire portfolio beyond Body Armor. Now Collins had Zen Water, Recover 180, and even Casa AO Tequila, and Harden said he's killing it. Bryant's death in early 2020 makes this story heavier than a simple business case study. Every time Harden talks about Body Armor now, he's talking about a mentor who isn't there anymore. Someone who tried to instill a wealth-building discipline in a locker room culture that, historically, hasn't always rewarded patience and equity over instant paydays. But the lesson stuck, and once that Body Armor money landed, Harden didn't put it in a savings account. He started building. He didn't just want to be an athlete with a good investment story, he wanted an actual portfolio, spanning fashion, beverages, hospitality, and beyond. The Body Armor windfall wasn't the end of the story. It was the seed money for an entire business empire that was about to expand in every direction at once. Once the Body Armor money hit, Harden stopped thinking like an athlete cashing endorsement checks and started thinking like an operator building a portfolio. And the portfolio that emerged over the following years reads less like a highlight reel and more like a small holding company. Start with the one that's closest to his own face and identity: grooming. Harden has one of the most recognizable beards in professional sports, so it made sense that he'd eventually monetize it directly. He built out a grooming line for his beard, alongside Art of Sport, a fragrance and body care line. That's a smart move that most athletes overlook. Instead of just being an ambassador for someone else's grooming brand, he built the infrastructure to own a piece of the exact product tied to his most famous physical trait. Then there's hospitality, which turned into arguably his most personal business venture. He built out restaurants including Toca Madera with locations in LA, Scottsdale, a new opening in Vegas, and expansion plans reaching Miami, plus his own restaurant in Houston 13. The Houston spot in particular came from a very specific personal need rather than a pure investment calculation. Harden explained that after spending 8 years in Houston going to all these different spots, he realized he needed a space where he could be comfortable, somewhere he could call home. So he started it off as a small lounge, and that was the vision. That detail matters because it shows a pattern that runs through nearly all of Harden's business decisions. He tends to build things he'll actually use himself, not just things with a good projected return. It's the same instinct that led him to invest in a tequila brand rather than something he had no personal connection to. In the spring of 2022, that instinct showed up publicly. Tequila Gran Diamante, an ultra-premium tequila brand, announced that NBA superstar and Olympic gold medalist James Harden had made an investment in the company and become a shareholder. The brand's co-founder made it clear why they wanted Harden specifically, rather than just any athlete with a following. Co-founder Rafi Hanoush said Harden was a great match because he is truly a tequila aficionado, and that the company was looking for someone who would not only invest, but also be passionate about the products. That's a small deal by dollar terms compared to body armor, but it reinforced the philosophy Harden had already articulated. Invest in things he can stand behind, not just things that look good on paper. From there, the portfolio kept branching outward into fashion and retail, an area Harden has talked about with more genuine enthusiasm than almost any other. He joined the board of Saks, describing himself as a very fashionable guy who invested because it made sense, given who he is, calling it something he can give back to the culture and to younger players coming into the league. Since fashion is huge, not just in basketball, but in general, and he wanted to remain part of the investment side of that world. The full list of ventures he's attached his name to by this stage of his career reads like an entire business school case study. His portfolio spans stakes in art of sport, body armor, stance socks, Therabody's percussive therapy devices, Saks, a founder role in an investment firm called 13 Endeavors, Pura home fragrance where he also serves as creative director, his own J. Harden Wines label, the Autograph NFT marketplace, the Jackpot digital lottery platform, Mitchell Ness, a Crunch Fitness partnership, an acting credit in Creed 3, and ownership ties to Houston's MLS and NWSL clubs, the Dynamo and the Dash. That's not a side hustle. That's a diversified operating company built almost entirely around one person's brand and personal taste. Sneakers, spirits, skincare, fashion retail, wine, sports ownership, and digital collectibles, all under one umbrella. More recently, Harden and Lance Collins have started plotting a second act in the beverage world, going back to the well that made both of them rich the first time. Despite their great successes, neither Harden nor Collins plan to retire from the beverage business, and the duo decided to team up again around Collins' idea for an upgrade. Harden has been explicit about how selective he's become with what he attaches his name to at this stage of his career. He said that after 17 years in the league, the only things he's putting his name on now are things he's passionate about. Whatever he invests in, whether it's time or money, has to be something he truly believes in. That selectiveness is the through line connecting every business chapter of Harden's life back to the lesson Kobe Bryant handed him with that first $500,000 check. Don't just chase every opportunity that comes across your desk. Wait for the ones you'd want to be part of even without the paycheck attached. But while the business side of Harden's life was compounding quietly in the background, the basketball side kept getting louder, messier, and more expensive. In trade demands, in relationships with front offices, and eventually in exactly how much money he was willing to leave on the table just to chase a championship that kept slipping away. That chase through Brooklyn, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles is what set up the final biggest contract of his entire career. After years of playoff heartbreak in Houston, Harden decided he'd had enough of building alone. He wanted a super team, and he was willing to sacrifice money to get it. Harden got his wish for a trade in January 2021, leaving the Houston Rockets to join the Brooklyn Nets, teaming up with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, in what was supposed to be the most unstoppable offensive trio the league had ever assembled. On paper, it was a champion in waiting. In reality, injuries, chemistry issues, and Irving's off-court complications turned the experiment into one of the most disappointing super teams in modern NBA history. Harden's response was blunt when he later reflected on it. He talked about the sacrifice he made chasing that ring and what it actually cost him, describing how trying to sacrifice both the money and his individual game in Brooklyn ultimately left him with nothing to show for it and, in his own words, cost him some of his swagger along the way. It's a rare admission from a superstar that the sacrifice for a ring narrative doesn't always pay off, even when you do everything the storyline asks of you. From there, the trade carousel kept spinning. He was then dealt to the Philadelphia 76ers in February 2022, the Los Angeles Clippers in October 2023, and the Cleveland Cavaliers in February 2026. The Philadelphia stint ended in a public breakdown with the front office. The disintegration of Harden's relationship with Sixers president Daryl Morey prompted Harden's decision to pick up his player option and demand a trade rather than test unrestricted free agency. The Clippers' years brought some financial stability, if not championship success. Harden and the Clippers agreed to a 2-year, $70 million contract, which kept him under contract until the end of the 2025-2026 season, 1 year before teammate Kawhi Leonard's deal expired. When that deal came up again, Harden and the Clippers doubled back down on each other. Harden declined his player option for 2025-2026 and agreed to a new 2-year deal worth $81.5 million. That included a player option for the 2026-2027 season with $52,500,000 guaranteed and an average annual salary of $40,750,000. Then, midway through that very deal, the Clippers moved on from him anyway. He was acquired from the Los Angeles Clippers for Darius Garland on Feb 4, landing with a young, ascending Cleveland roster built around Donovan Mitchell and reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Evan Mobley. And Cleveland is where the ring chase finally produced something real, at least for a season. He appeared in 26 regular season games with Cleveland, averaging 20.5 points, 7.7 assists, and 4.8 rebounds, helping push the team to a 52-30 finish and its first trip to the Eastern Conference Finals since 2018. But the deep run ended in disappointment again. The Cavaliers were swept by the New York Knicks in 4 games, and Harden's own shooting cratered under the bright lights, with reporting showing he slumped to 16 points a game in the playoffs, making just 17% of his three-pointers. By any normal athlete's logic, a playoff collapse like that should have shrunk his next contract. Instead, it did the opposite, because Harden had made himself too valuable to the locker room and the front office to let walk. Harden declined his $42.3 million player option for the upcoming season, but indicated after Cleveland was swept that he'd like to return. And return. He did, on the exact terms that opened this whole story. James Harden agreed to a new 3-year, $97 million contract to return to the Cleveland Cavaliers, with a player option and a trade kicker. His agents at Equity Sports confirmed to ESPN. Buried inside that deal is a clause that quietly protects Harden more than the headline number does. The trade kicker acts as a built-in insurance policy. With Harden earning an average of $32.33 million per year under the new deal, a trade would immediately trigger a $4.85 million annual raise, bumping his total contract value up to $111.55 million and making him significantly more expensive and harder to move. That single clause tells you everything about how far Harden's negotiating instincts have come since that 22-year-old who refused a $54 million offer from Oklahoma City. Back then, he had to force a trade to get paid fairly. Now, he's built protection directly into his contract so that if anyone tries to trade him again, they have to pay a premium for the privilege. The scale of what this new deal means for his career is almost hard to process. Harden's career earnings will now reach $511 million, making him the fourth player in NBA history to eclipse the $500 million mark, joining LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Stephen Curry. And there's a second milestone tucked inside the fine print that's arguably even more impressive given his age. Harden, who turns 37 on August 26, will also become the second player in league history to sign a contract guaranteeing $90 million or more at the age of 37 or older, with LeBron being the only other player to accomplish that feat. Off the court, all of that money has built exactly the kind of life you'd expect from someone who spent a decade and a half stacking max contracts on top of business equity. His primary residence is a Houston estate valued around $10 million, a sprawling 26,000 square foot property with 8 bedrooms and 12 bathrooms, feeling more like a private resort than a residence. The amenities include a fitness room, wine cellar, office, and a full bar for hosting friends, plus a collection of basketball memorabilia and custom artwork that gives the mansion a personal touch celebrating his career and achievements. His garage tells its own version of the same story, a collection built up piece by piece as the contracts got bigger, headlined by a Rolls-Royce Wraith worth over $340,000, alongside a Bentley Bentayga, a Range Rover autobiography, and various other pieces that have rotated in and out of the collection over the years, as his tastes and his bank account both grew. Put together, current estimates put his overall net worth around $165 million as of early 2026, a figure that will almost certainly climb again once the new Cleveland deal is fully processed into his career totals, on top of whatever the next chapter of his business ventures with Lance Collins produces. There's still no championship on his resume: 14 All-Star selections, an MVP trophy, 3 scoring titles, and now over $500 million in career basketball earnings, but no ring. That's the one line on his resume that money has never been able to buy him. And at 37 years old, with a fresh 3-year commitment to a young, talented Cleveland roster, he's betting one more time that this version of the gamble finally pays off. Whether or not Cleveland gets him that ring, the financial story is already written. A kid who bet on himself over a $6 million gap with Oklahoma City turned that instinct into restaurants, a tequila brand, a wine label, a seat on the board of a luxury retailer, and a $200 million equity stake in a sports drink that outgrew every contract he'd ever signed. The beard became a business, the bench player became a board member, and the rich life of James Harden, whatever happens on the court from here, is already one of the most complete financial transformations in modern sports.